The system design related question, which typically asked how you can scale from 1 user to 1 million or 10 million user. So we'll see the different approaches that I have experienced in my current and previous organization, how we scale from 0 to million, and what should be the structure if I have just one user or 1,000 users or 1 lakh user or 1 million user. What in different kinds of use case, what kind of structure, server structure, deployment structure we should have. So let's get started. So assume that you have started a company which is very new. So in the beginning, and you don't know the product, how much users will be there, and you just want to do some POC work. You just want to deploy somewhere with less cost, and see the you want to show the POC, or if there are just 10 or hundreds of users, how to go ahead with that. So that can be what is the ideal structure for that will be. So suppose you have a few web user, and then you have maybe some mobile user as well. Okay, so one of the structure that you can follow is you can use a shared server, um, where shared server means shared hosting. If you don't want to use cloud, this is the one of the approach that you can follow. So if you don't want to go to the cloud, and if you don't have any idea about the cloud and you just want to deploy on shared hosting provided by many private companies, smaller companies in Delhi, Pune, Mumbai, everywhere, so you can go with that route. And in that shared server, what typically happens, you have it deploys more than one app for each uh, clients. Okay, so suppose what will happen, suppose you consulted with one of the shared hosting provider. They already have app 1, so they will use and you have given them your app, and your app is suppose e-commerce. So in that case, they will deploy your e-commerce app to this same server. Okay, here it is considered that suppose they have the tech stack, what is used for on this server is like you have PHP or Python, then Linux and Nginx is used, for example. In that case, if your application needs same kind of tech stack, then they will deploy it on this server. And if your application needs say different tech stack, then also they have multiple provisions where if the technology used is .NET specific or Java specific or Python specific or Node specific, for different kinds of tech stack they have different kinds of shared servers. So they can you can choose one of the shared service provider, and they will host it for you. They will give you the URL, and they will give the URL that you can give to the your uh, end user, and end user can access it. And you have suppose mobile. We'll go through the different approaches. So this is just the beginning of one of the requirement where you have just few users. Okay, and they also give you this HTTPS and all. So suppose you have this structure, and they'll give you so both of these users can connect to their servers, and they do give HTTPS protection as well to your connects if you want to use HTTPS or HTTP, both service they provide, they will just charge you differently for different services. Okay, so this is one of the way that you can go ahead and use. Now let's assume that this is not what you want, and you want to have some structure where you want to use the cloud. Okay, so if you want to use cloud, in that case how you can do it, I'll show you that part as well. Okay, so just give me a sec. So suppose you want to use cloud. In that case, what will change? So I'll just remove this structure, and I'll just consider that you are familiar with AWS or Azure or GCP. The structure will be almost similar, only the component name is different. Okay, so on AWS we have EC2 instance. So since till now we are trying to handle only users till suppose 1 to 1000. Okay, so whether you have one user or whether you have 1000 users, what is the structure that you can try to follow? Okay, so that we are trying to see. So you will have your so suppose your tech stack is you are using Java, you are using Angular. So let me write it down. So suppose you have Java in backend, then you have Angular or React for the Java for backend, Angular, React for the front end, and you have suppose MySQL or Postgres at the backend. Okay, and this is normal with web where Angular and React communicate with backend service through REST APIs. Okay, so everything can be deployed on the single EC2 instance, and suppose you have just from 1 to 100 or 500 or 1000 users max. In that case, this is the structure that you can follow. Everything can be deployed on the EC2 instance only. You don't need separate services. Okay, so only one service can be used for this. Okay, so when the user will try to go here, so for domain mapping, so suppose you have a domain, so people will typically how this will structure. So people will go to Route 53 for URL domain mapping. Okay, so you have URL and domain mapping, and then from there request will come to this place. Okay, and it will be served to you directly. Okay, so this is another, if you want to go with the cloud way and you have just a few users, in that case this is one of the basic thing that you can do. You don't need to use multiple servers since you don't have much use of it. Okay, and in the beginning you want to save the cost as well. Okay, that's how you can go. You can use the basic MySQL or Postgres, which is open source. Angular is open source. Java is again open source. All the open source technologies you can use, and only two services you can use. Okay, and if you don't want to use Route 53, in that case just have a static public IP for EC2 that can be mapped on the control panel of your domain host, and it can come directly. So it can scale up to 0 to 500 to 1000 users max. I would say if you have this much load, you don't know you don't have much user load base. In that case, this can be followed. Now assume that you have your user loads increase and it is no more just 100 or 500 users. You want to have suppose support of 1000 instead of thousands or 10,000 users. Okay, 5,000, 10,000 users are there. Then what is the typical structure that you should follow? In that case, what I will recommend is use separate RDS. So first of all, let's divide. You can do two things basically. So instead of having one single RD EC2 instance, you can have two instance. Okay. So let me copy paste this. So one will be having AngularJS. So one EC2 instance will have Angular or whatever is the UI tech stack, and Nginx server will be installed on that. For you can use other HTTP servers as well, and the other server will have this. Suppose you are using Java or Python or whatever. So based on that, the two is its EC2 instance will be you can use. One will be using one will be used for front end and other will be used for back end. So both of these will be available to back. Okay, and still you can use the database in the same EC2 instance. If you have suppose 5,000 users, you don't have much workload, so you can use the same structure. You can follow the same structure here. So it can scale well, and you will get the support for up to 500 5,000 or 10,000 users can be supported easily, as per my experience in my past companies. Now suppose user loads increase from 5,000, it went to 10,000 or 15,000. Then what you can do to scale up, you can have a separate RDS instance. RDS, this is another service from AWS, which is specifically for database. So just remove the database layer from here. So instead of installing database on EC2 instance, just use RDS, and this RDS can be RDS is provided for different database flavors such as MySQL, Postgres. So if you have MySQL or Postgres SQL, whatever is there, anything all are supported. So this EC2 instance will talk to RDS, separate RDS. Now you have the work is good. So as you can see that I am stating that as soon as the user loads increase, the load on the server also gets distributed. So earlier we have everything on the shared, then the next step is having everything on the EC2, then next I have shared the load by creating two EC2 instances, and those talk to each other. And then if the user loads again increasing, I have distributed the load to RDS for database. Otherwise EC2, this only server was handling UI plus backend. Now we have distributed UI separately and backend separately, so now load get distributed. Again I have distributed the load from EC2 by using the RDS. Okay, so now load is again distributed. With the increase in number of users, I am distributing the load by use of various different services provided by AWS. Okay, so this will scale up to 10,000 or 15 or 20,000, 25,000 users can be easily scaled on this structure, where we have two Nginx servers. I'm not using Kubernetes, Docker, EKS cluster. Nothing is needed for now if you don't have that much user in that case. Okay, now suppose that you have now increased the load, user base is increasing and it is going to 50,000 for example. So in that case, same you can use the vertical scaling. Don't go for horizontal scaling immediately, so you can use the vertical scaling. And for vertical scaling, EC2 Amazon EC2 provides large or extra large instance. So Amazon EC2 provides large or extra large instance. So initially I was using suppose medium or micro instance. But since user load is increasing, I will have more heads on the server. So instead of medium and micro instance, I can go for extra large, large or extra large. So for those users who don't know what is the difference between medium and micro and large and extra large, so it all comes with separate, like you will as soon as you will go from micro to medium to large to extra large, it will give you more processing power, means more CPUs you will get, more RAM you will get on the servers, and cost will also increase. So since user base is increasing, you have to use larger infrastructure, and now the cost will also increase for you. So you can use large, extra large, and this is the vertical scaling I'm doing. Based on need, you can do the vertical scaling. Now it can support up to 50,000 users by increasing the number of CPUs, memory, okay, storage will be increased. So this is how it can be scaled. Now let's see that instead of MySQL, if you want, if the database is also increasing, there is some unstructured data, database load is also increasing. In that case, I can go for DynamoDB or any NoSQL flavor, NoSQL, and one of them is DynamoDB or MongoDB. So if your database is increasing, so instead of having relied on the RDBMS, you can go to NoSQL. Okay, initially I was relying on RDBMS, relational database, but now you can think of using any NoSQL flavor as well. Okay, since the user base is increasing, your database will increase, your database size needs to increase, and you don't and you can expect millions of rows, records, millions, 100 millions record, for example. So in that case, NoSQL flavor can also be used from RDS. Again, it is a RDS only, and this was also RDS. So this can scale. Now what if it goes to 1 lakh user, or 5, or up to 2-3 lakh of user if you want to increase? Now you cannot rely on the vertical scaling, because this is a single point of failure. If you want to increase more, then in that case you should opt for the you can use ELB, which is the load balancer. Okay, so you don't need to want to rely on, so load balancers, we call that maybe ELB. Okay, now instead of directly connecting to these servers, you can use the ELB. Let me select all this together. So now you will have the load balancer associated to it, and load balancer can and your number of servers will has also increased. So here load balancer can let me keep it separate. You have multiple servers, so in that case load balancer can decide which server to point to. Okay, you will have multiple instances of backend, multiple instances of front end servers. Okay, so load balancer can decide can now distribute the load between various servers. Okay, so now you have distributed the load. If one server goes down, it will not hamper the application because other server will be live, and load balancer will do the continuous health monitoring, health check. Whichever server is available, only to that server it will route the request. Okay, so this is how you can scale well. It will also increase the reliability, availability of the application. Okay, now assume that this is working fine, and your user base is again increasing, and now it increased up to 500,000 users. Okay, so how to do that? So in that case, instead of doing the vertical scaling, I'll be doing the uh, horizontal scaling in that case. And also for if the user base is increasing, and to make sure that database is available, I'll be using AJAD instance of AJAD AJAD instance. Okay, so AJAD instance will replicate the data to multiple zones. So suppose initially you are using US or Indian subcontinent, then if you use the AJAD instance, in that case your data will be available in more than one zone. So if one zone goes down due to any reason, then in that case also other zones will have the availability of the data. So RDS multi-AJAD feature you can use there. So you can use AZ multi-AZ instance. Now if you want to scale more, suppose you have 1 million user, for example. In that case, what we can do, we can do the horizontal scaling. So based on need, like since load can goes up and down, and we don't want to build for servers which is not in use. So that's why you can use the horizontal pod scaling, where horizontally number of nodes will increase and decrease based on the load on the server. Okay, so now what you can do, you can maybe cluster it like that. Let me try to drag, send to back. Okay, and it will have the HPA or horizontal pod scaling. So now things will be scaled up based on need. Like it can grow up to 10, 20, whatever is the configuration that you decide. Now horizontal pod scaling, you can use you can have configuration inside your application in the Helm chart, or you can use the configuration available on AWS as well. So you can scale it based on load. Okay, now horizontal pod scaling, you can configure based on, like, if CPU increase, if CPU load is more than 50%, then add one more instance. If the memory is more than 60% used, then add one more instance. So those kind of configurations are you can do in the in horizontal pod scaling. Okay, now since the user base is increasing, and you have multi-agent instance, but for reading the for read purpose, there may be some delay. So how you can optimize the delay on the read? So for that, I'll be using some CDN. Okay, and so I'll be use some CDN here. So content delivery network I'll use. So anything which is static in nature will be stored here. So yeah, one more thing is the storage. Now you can so if you suppose your application is storing a lot of images, static files, so instead of storing all those on EC2 instance or ports, you can use the S3 bucket. Okay, so S3 bucket of so can be used. So now all the static files can be stored here, and it will be cached on the CDN. So now CDN will read data from S3 bucket, and that can be directly given to the user. So now user will have let me group it just for simplicity. Back. Okay, you can just delete it. And so now through CDN data can be cached data can be provided, or static files can be provided through CDN, and it will be again stored through application only, but application will store on S3, and S3 will be read by CDN, and those static files that you see on the web applications will be served to the end user. Okay. Now this is where we reached till now for optimizing the application performance. Now let's see that we have not used caching mode till now. So I'll be using some caching techniques as well. So I'll be using, suppose, Redis. Redis is not available. Cache, yeah. So I'll be using some caching technique where Redis or any in memory DB cache will be available. I'll be trying to use that. So based on your technology choice, you can use any in memory database cache, and those will so if user is trying to read something, and so files can be read from and stored in the cache, and that can be served to the end user. Okay, so caching data can be used. So there are a few things which will be read from database, there are a few things which will be read from CDN, and there are a few things which will be read from the cache as well. So now we have distributed the read load. Okay, still the transaction is done in the NoSQL or RDBMS flavor. So now I'll remove the RDS, because we have gone to 500,000 user, or 1 million user now can be supported through this technique. Okay, now after that you need to we have also talked about the horizontal pod scaling, or you can call it auto scaling. Auto scaling can be done, and you can use maybe EKS cluster or self-managed cluster as well on the cloud for this. So these are some of the things that you can use on the cloud, and that will help you to grow from 1 user to million user maybe. Okay, so and what is next that you can do? So all these things that I'm saying here, auto scaling or caching or creating databases, RDS, EC2 instance, creating S3 bucket, now these things can be automated as well. So you don't need to do manually create anything. You can use infrastructure as code, such as Ansible for example, or Ceph or Puppet. So you can use infrastructure as code that can be used to create all this infrastructure which is needed in the application. Okay, so nothing manual needs to be done. So I'll recommend to use infrastructure as code, okay, to create all these things. Now once you will have all that, you can distribute more load. So suppose your application is using some email mechanism. So your application needs to send millions of emails every day. So instead of relying on your Java code or Python code to send email, you can use the SQS or email other technique, which is on the other services which is provided by for messaging. You can use SQS, or there are services which is there for, and Amazon SNS is there, simple notification service, SNS. We have so there are multiple things that can be outsourced. So for sending yes, it is, you can use multiple services provided by AWS to outsource the load of sending notifications, sending emails, and other things. Okay, even Amazon provides managed Kafka as well. So it is just based on how much you want to spend and how much more services that you want to use, self-managed services that you can use from AWS or any cloud service provider. So what are the things that we have done when we reach to 1 million or plus users? So we are using multi-agent instance for database. Okay. Then elastic load balancing we are using as well. Auto scaling we have enabled for database for pods or the instance server EC2 instances. Then we are using caching as well. We are using S3 bucket for static content storage, and CDN we are using for fast serving of the data caching as well. Then we are using our infrastructure code to scale all these and create all these automatically. Okay. Now so a recap of the thing that we have done till now, and also like instead of using EC2 you can use just if there is some services which needs AWS Lambda is one of the serverless architecture serverless architecture. If you want to go, you can use AWS Lambda as well. So if you have some repetitive tasks to do, suppose file upload is another thing, one of the thing that you want to do, instead of doing it yourself, you can use the managed service. So AWS Lambda, you can write the code for uploading the files every time, or processing if you need to do repetitive processing multiple times, or on some interval, or on some events. Then you use AWS Lambda to do. You can outsource everything to AWS Lambda, and you can write code in Java, Python, C# in AWS Lambda to do all that. Okay. So what a quick review if I need to do for what all we did. We moved for after reaching to more than 1 million user or 10 million user, we have used multi-agent infrastructure, and then we have used multiple AWS services such as ELB, elastic load balancing, Amazon S3, Amazon SNS technique, SQS, Amazon SES, and many more technique services we have used. Then we have built redundancy at every level. We have started with RDBMS, then we moved to NoSQL databases. We have used automation infrastructure as code for doing everything. We have used cache, we have used CDN, we have used S3 buckets. Many things we have used when we moved to 1 million plus users. Now apart from all this, you need to monitor these servers as well. So you can use observe, or you can use for monitoring and logging and checking logs. You can use application performance monitoring tools such as New Relic for monitoring all these services and logs as well. So based on need, so what I was trying to do from moving from 1 user to 1 million user, why I have shown this, because based on need you should decide what kind of infrastructure I need, what kind of infrastructure I need to support. Okay. And based on that only you should decide what services I need to use, what infrastructure I need. You can reduce the cost as well. Okay. So that's all from today's video. I hope you have understood or liked something from this video, and if you think the videos are helpful, or I should do more similar kind of system design architecture videos, do write in the comment section. And if there is anything confusion, you can write you can write in the comment section. Okay. So thank you so much for watching today's video, and see you in the next video. And if you think the videos are helpful, do like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you will get the latest update from our channel. Thank you so much.